morning, fellow Toastmasters, especially our guests.
Good morning.
Morning.
By any standard, I was a quiet child. I didn't have any particular needs, therefore, no need to talk much. Also, I overheard people talking about me using the word shy. One thing I didn't suffer from was homesickness. Maybe it was because I had 2 older sisters. One reason I didn't need to talk, they sort of filled up the space, if you know what I mean. So by the time I was 11, I was spending almost entire summers, every summer, on my cousin's farm in East Texas. Little tiny town, going there from the city of New Orleans. My cousins were really about half a generation older than me, about 17 years. So it wasn't like being with an aunt and uncle. They weren't that old. A little more fun than that. My cousin, Kay, taught women's PE at a college. Her husband, Harold, was the farmer. There was no cattle, there were no horses. The attraction for me was the machines. He had pickup trucks, big trucks, tractors, plows, combines, everything a kid would ever want to try to drive. Stuff with levers and all kinds of things, wheels, buttons, the works. My job description was shadow. For years, I just tailed along with Harold. I spent a lot of time riding shotgun in the pickup truck. We would deliver the farm workers to the field, run into town, get some tractor parts, go to the bank. I had to sit in the truck when he went to the bank. I think it got ugly in there. One particular day, I could tell it was going to be different. See, a lot of days were kind of the same, but they were all a mystery to me, because he never told me what we were doing, and I never asked. It was almost Zen-like. I lived entirely in the present. He probably had a lot on his mind, so I didn't want to bother him. Kept to myself, riding shotgun. This particular morning, we got one of the big trucks with a flatbed back. Hooked up a trailer to it. If you're the shadow, you get really good hooking up trailers. Come on back. All right, got it. He drove a backhoe onto the trailer. The backhoe is the coolest thing ever. You know, it's got a bulldozer front, it's like a tractor in the middle, and it's got the digging arm in the back. I was dying to use that thing. I hardly ever did. We took off. No idea where we're going. But about half an hour later, we pulled up to some railroad tracks in this little tiny, darn near extinct town. And that's when I found out what we're doing. We're going to dig up a gas tank that's under the ground and haul it home. Harold was great at salvaging stuff. Somehow he found out about this gas tank. So we unloaded the backhoe and he started digging and I was supervising. Did a pretty good job digging it up, but when I looked at it, I thought, Harold, this thing's got holes rusted in it. What are you going to do with it? He said, that's nothing, Johnny. I can weld up those holes. The day that you take out the welder and start welding on a tank that's had gas in it for 30 years, I am not going to be your shadow. Out of here! I didn't say any of this. Kept it all to myself. We just kept on supervising. He finally got the tank up, hoisted it onto the back of the truck, chained it down. About this time, an old codger comes along. You know what I mean. Old codger, pickup truck, drives up. These people are very common around small towns and farms. Harold starts talking to this guy. This guy was the worst kind of old codger. You know what kind that is? He was a talker. I didn't want to have anything to do with that. So I went and sat on the backhoe and pretended I was digging a hole. After a while, I looked over and this guy pulled out a gun. That got my attention. I thought, what's he doing? When I realized he wasn't going to rob us and run off with our gas tank, I realized it was okay, so I went back to pretend digging. Eventually Harold came back, the fella drove off, and we loaded up the backhoe and headed for home. Harold was very excited, very, very excited. He was talking about this gun he just bought. I said, you bought the gun from this guy? I didn't say anything, I was just thinking it. He bought a .357 Magnum from this character just by the side of the road. Wrote him a check right there. And he said, Johnny, I can't wait to get back home. I want to try this thing out. Try it out? On what? So we got back, unhooked the trailer. When I came around the corner, he had the gun out and he was getting ready to shoot it at something. And he did. I heard this bing! He shot at a piece of farm equipment. Time out here between you and me. Because I had about 2 seconds and my goal was, I do not want him to shoot that thing one more time. Because if it ricochets and hits one of us, I mean, like, we're going into sudden death over time, okay? What do I say? What do I say? What do I say? I thought, okay, I'll tell him, like, Harold, it could bounce off the steel and could hurt one of us. And I realized, personal safety argument with Harold, probably not going to fly. Does not resonate. So I had to think of something else. All this was happening in 2 seconds. And I thought, okay, Harold, we're time in now. Harold, you paid good money for that equipment. You don't want to just shoot a hole in it, you might have to fix it or buy a new one. And he looked at me and that glazed look came off of his eyes. And he put the gun down. And he said, yeah, you're right. I was in shock. Not from the gun thing, but because Harold had listened to something I said. And it actually changed his mind. I had found something I could do